Hey everyone, I'm Madonna. This is David, naturopath,
Hello.
holistic counsellor, and we thought we'd have a chat today. Well, about a few things because this morning we were chatting about heart health. So David, of course, recovering from 2 heart attacks, doing bloody well, awesome, and feeling really good and doing lots of self-care,
self-development.
So self-care, self-development, listening to lots of people online with lots of information. So really increasing that knowledge of how to improve heart health.
Yeah, by fine-tuning diet, taking really good supplements, doing regular yoga and meditation, and some dancing, just that sort of thing, keeps the body active. And losing weight, so losing about 5 kilos.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, and I know we've mentioned the 5 kilos before, but keeping that stable is really powerful because it's really easy just to lose fluid and muscle mass when we first start losing weight. That's why it's great that he's been doing a high fiber, basically a ketogenic diet, which is really nice. So
it's about a month since I've set that 5 kilos off.
Yeah, beautiful.
So to stabilize it.
Yeah, and then the next step, it will be the next thing. But anyway, so through our Kinesi Foundations, we sort of did a whole bunch of stuff this morning and some interesting things showed up. But we were chatting about what the heart needs to heal. So we did a little bit of that yesterday when we were talking about neurotransmitters. But we were just having a think before about the sort of things that causes heart health issues. Right. Health issues.
Well, for example, so still we're dealing with, so I've got a chipped tooth, I'll have it fixed tomorrow if I look a little bit funny. I'm a bit shy about it, but here we go. Yeah. So, the research shows that, like, as we were talking about, all the feel-good hormones like dopamine, base like dopamine, and
oxytocin, serotonin,
endorphins, and there's more of them. But when we do things that are pro-social, they end up improving in their capacity. And when we do things that just say we're abused or we're socially criticized or socially put down, nearly all of those things will drop.
Right.
So having good levels of the positive hormones has been proven, and you can look up all sorts of studies on each individual one.
Yes.
But having good levels of the happy hormones is really good for heart health.
Yes.
Having low levels is really bad for heart health.
Yes.
So that's the feel-good ones. So then we've got the ones that are the stress hormones.
So cortisol and adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, all of these little guys. Yeah.
Right, and or too much serotonin will create aggression, say. So, so when they're out of balance in one direction from, say, something like stress, the first one that's going to go up and the one that everyone knows about most is cortisol. And also because it comes from the kidneys.
We also need cortisol, by the way.
Right, yeah.
So, there's like a bell curve when we need it through the day because we, and it's one of those things that really does help us. And it's controlled by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and the vagus nerve. So when we're looking at our nerve stuff with the matured hops bitter extract benefits, it's just one of those things that's controlled by that as well.
Right, but
cortisol,
too much.
Oh, absolutely.
So too much cortisol, and cortisol comes from the kidneys?
Oh, it's one and adrenals.
And adrenals. Oh, the adrenals, right. Yeah. And they sit on top of the kidneys.
Yeah, the adrenals make 62 hormones.
Right, okay.
So the adrenals are involved in many, many, many things, including heart rate and heartbeat and respiratory and, in kids with those clonic movements, all sorts of things like tics and things. The adrenals are involved in a lot of stuff. And, 62 hormones.
Where does noradrenaline come from then?
The adrenals.
Oh, that all comes
It also makes natural steroids. It also makes all sorts of things. Yeah.
Oh, so even though they're processed in the brain, the chemicals come from down here.
The HPA, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, communicates with organs across the board in our body.
Right, that's interesting.
So that HPA, which gets activated when we do sunshine first thing in the morning, when we meditate first thing in the morning, when we ground first thing in the morning, put our feet on the dewy grass outside, those sort of things stimulate the HPA. Herbs like Korean ginseng first thing in the morning helps to stimulate the HPA. We get something like 8 times the benefit out of Korean ginseng when we have it first thing in the morning because that's when we want to activate a bunch of our hormones.
That's interesting.
That's adrenotone, by the way, or the liquid herbal Korean ginseng.
So what do you know the effect of adrenaline on heart health?
Oh, it's bad.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
So we
want to keep our stress calm, and this is the problem. A lot of people don't notice adrenaline and cortisol because it gives people energy. you know. So some people, and I often look at high level, you know, because I'm a bit of a political nerd. So, you know, I look at high level politicians and you can see their health go downhill when they're just on like 20 hours a day. So if people, again, don't have a way of switching off and calming their nervous system energy, it really ages us. And there was a doctor years and years ago, and I've probably told you this story, and I'm sure my listeners have heard it. There was this, I was at a metagenic seminar one year, and they were talking, there was this woman from America. She had been a cardiologist for 20 years. So, and not just, no, she was a cardiac surgeon. So she had done hundreds of bypass operations and stents and all sorts of things like that. And it had never occurred to her as a cardiac surgeon that stress was connected to heart attacks. So then she happened to hear magically one day, gee, maybe stress is connected. So she started having a 5-minute consultation with her people before she would operate on them and say, in the 72 hours before your heart attack, was there any major stress? And a huge percentage of them there was.
Oh, before their heart attack, really?
Yeah.
Right, and so a major stress before a heart attack, that would be releasing cortisol and adrenaline. And...
Well, yeah, and depending on the stress, from a kinesiology perspective, you know, good old survival switching, deep survival, hidden deep survival switching, it depends whether the body assesses it as acute or chronic. So any stress that's going to do something like cause a heart attack, your body has deemed that you are not going to survive.
Right.
So your body can release that stuff called fibrin from the liver, and fibrin is an acute phase protein that's a clotting factor.
Oh.
So if you have
a
stress, from stress. So if you have a stress, like just say you're at the supermarket and your credit card doesn't work and you know you got $3,000 available on it, but it doesn't work. And, you know, you can imagine just that sort of stress of, oh my God, has someone stolen my money? Why isn't my credit card working? I need to get these groceries. What am I going to do? I'm going to be in trouble. You know, so, you know, our brain extrapolates everything instantly. That can, because the body doesn't know what's real and imaginary. So it still thinks we're all cavemen and cavewomen from 10,000 years ago. So it doesn't know the difference between my credit card not working, or I didn't get the home loan, or I didn't get the job, or, you know, whatever it is, it's a trauma. It doesn't know the difference between that and being attacked by a tiger. So an acute phase stress hormone called fibrin, and we need the enzyme fibrinogen to break it down. What it does is release from our liver fibrin, which is a clotting factor, because your brain has determined that not being able to pay your bill with your credit card, not being able to get your house, not being able to keep your rental thing going, it's the same as being eaten by a tiger. So your body, and this is the acute phase protein from your liver, it releases this clotting factor into your blood so that when the tiger pounces, you don't bleed out and die, and you can get to your medicine woman and she can clean you up.
Oh, right, I see.
So it's a safety thing, but exactly the same happens if someone's shot. Exactly the same thing happens if it's a bow and arrow accident in the backyard. Exactly, sorry, that's from Sopranos. You know, exactly the same thing happens with a trauma, and that's why
What about somebody like yelling and screaming?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So if you feel unsafe, lack of safety is a huge trigger for the body being able to go, I'm not safe, I don't want to be here, or I do want to be here, and let's release this clotting factor to protect me.
Okay. That's interesting, because I was looking up, I was just looking up cortisol last night.
Yeah.
And because obviously stress, there's a likelihood of high cortisol.
Absolutely.
And what were the things that did it? Like just from even just a short Google thing without looking up any studies, it was increasing blood sugar.
Yeah. So blood sugar, so that raises insulin. Now, and insulin, it can be inflammatory if the body doesn't sop it up and utilize it to get energy into
and when you're seeing the cardiologist, one thing they're trying to look for is to lower your blood sugar.
Yes.
Right.
And blood pressure, of course.
And so the reason blood pressure increases blood sugar, increases what did it say, clotting?
Stress hormone. Yeah, well, the clotting factor, that's the fibrin.
And also it said it
it says cholesterol.
No, but it actually said that it creates a situation where cholesterol deposits.
Yeah, so high level of cortisol from long-term stress can increase blood cholesterol, triglycerides, blood sugar, and blood pressure.
So this means long-term stress. So that means if you're in a relationship that's stressful over time.
Yeah.
So stress over time can actually cause a heart attack.
Absolutely. And I always talk to my clients about, well, when your unconscious brain feels like you're going back into the lion's den when you get home, or say a turdy teacher, who's picking on you, if you're going into the lion's den at school, or if you're doing sport and you've got someone who's like on you 100%, it can feel like going back into the lion's den. So anything that makes your body feel like it's going into the lion's den can raise cholesterol. Do you remember what cholesterol does in the body?
Well, there's different types of cholesterol, obviously.
But that's not the problem. That's what most people use to be convinced that it's bad.
And the only reason that I'm saying that is that's what people are familiar with. When you get the blood test back, it'll show you that.
And it's actually all inaccurate, but that's okay.
But still, it's still something that we can work on.
Maybe. I'll tell you why. Because,
like, for example, I've got my blood test back a couple of years and said low vitamin D. Yeah. So I do take that seriously.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, well, vitamin D does a million things in the body, as does cholesterol. You cannot make cortisol without cholesterol.
Oh, really?
Cholesterol is the backbone of every hormone. So, excuse me. So if you are constantly in a fight and flight response, constantly needing to spit out adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, stress hormones, then you will keep running out of cholesterol.
Oh.
So your liver makes most of the cholesterol in your body. There's the hint. The liver makes most of your cholesterol. So it releases the cholesterol so that your body can make the hormones, so that your body can regulate your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And the bit that's grabbed on by the medical profession is the fact that it builds up in the arteries. But what they're not paying attention to is things that insulin can damage the capillaries. So then, cortisol can damage the capillaries. Heavy metals can damage the capillaries.
All right,
any toxin like oxalates, plant toxins.
So then how do we look at this with, say, cortisol? Because
cortisol's huge.
If you're stressed, just say you're in an ongoing relationship that's stressed.
Yes.
So cortisol will be one thing.
Yes.
But there'll be other unstable hormones being released.
Yes, absolutely.
So how does it cause a heart attack?
Right.
So like over time.
So over time, for a start, because your body, when you're stressed, your insulin will be unstable.
Right.
So even if you're eating really well, it's how many people eat for comfort, so they can be doing really, really well, have a big fight, and then, drink to get drunk, or they go and eat a whole chocolate cake.
Then they're okay.
Well, that soothes their brain, but what it does is creates this massive amount of inflammation in the body. So one inflammatory meal can create inflammation for up to 42 days. One inflammatory meal. And I always joke with pizza and beer because that's every week for me and Jay. So anyway, it's been 3 times in the last 4 days. But anyway, so it's
going to last for 3 months.
Yeah, well, we do stuff every single day to lower our inflammation.
Then you can offset it.
You can offset it.
We're talking about the general rule.
Yeah, most people don't offset these things. So what happens then is if you have one big inflammatory meal, inflammatory hormones, and there's something like there's a whole, I can't remember how many, but there's a huge amount of inflammatory cytokines, which is just inflammatory markers, but they can injure the gut lining. They can injure the capillary beds. And your capillaries around the body are no further than 2 cells away from any other capillary.
Right.
So our 75 trillion cells in the body are no further than 2 cells away from any capillary in our body.
Right.
So if capillaries are being micro-damaged because of, let's talk stress, because of insulin from, our insulin highs and lows when we're having a hard time balancing our blood sugar, or the cortisol that comes from stress going into that tiger's den all the time, or from not getting enough sleep because your brain, chatter.
So you're saying that the stress will break down multiple parts of the system.
Oh, absolutely.
And the heart attack's just the outcome.
That's the end result.
Oh, right, I see.
Because your body will be releasing the cholesterol again to sop up all of these things in the body. So there's something that we see in live blood screening called...
So cholesterol's
it's a healing agent.
A filtering.
It also sops up toxins.
Oh, so cholesterol's similar. So when you...
And again, the liver releases most of the cholesterol.
So just say you've got a lung infection, right? You've got a cough.
Yep.
And that mucus that sits on it, is that cholesterol?
It's a combination.
Right.
So a lot of it will be white blood cells, but some of it can be cholesterol if
Right.
there's heavy metals. Like just say we've been
And
breathing
like,
in
but
environmental toxins, that
because
can damage
cholesterol,
our.
I'm just saying the positive side of cholesterol. So it sits on that to soothe it.
It's only positives with cholesterol.
So it just sits on there so the infection can work its way through.
Yeah, and then eventually
And
we have to
cover it
break
up.
down that mucus, and this is where N-acetylcysteine comes in. So David loves his NAC. So NAC, did we test how many of them you needed? I don't think we did.
No.
Anyway, so NAC,
Take them
N-acetylcysteine,
every day now.
it's a mucolytic, which means it helps to break down mucus in the body.
Oh,
Now,
right.
the reason the body releases mucus is to protect any organ of the body.
Mm.
So, you know, the other thing about being stressed all the time, we get sick when we get run down.
Mm.
So, you know, people like teachers, for example, they'll work 8 to 10 weeks straight, and then they get sick on the first, second, third day of their holidays.
But they
Or, you
still
know,
get 2 weeks holidays.
yeah, so they can recover.
And they get
But
10 weeks and other people get 4 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's lots of benefits. So, but the other thing is people who are sole business owners, you know, they're not just doing their 9 to 5 job, you know, there's like.
And they don't get 10 weeks holiday.
They're definitely not, unless they choose to, but, you know, who's paying them? Yeah, that's right. So it's a very interesting thing because small business owners as well, they're so terrified of going on holidays. And I've seen this nonstop for 30 years because they know that as soon as they stop, that's when their body goes, holy crap, okay, now it's time to eliminate the toxins. Let's create some mucus. Let's get you lying down in bed for a week so that I can relax, rejuvenate, regenerate, and get rid of some of the toxins in the body. So what feels like a cold or a flu can actually be the body just eliminating toxins.
Right, because there's a lot of theory on this now in counselling.
Yeah.
That stress is such a powerful force on damaging every part of your system. And the person who did the best research on that is Robert Sapolsky, and he's the head of neurology at Stanford.
Right.
And he worked with baboons, but basically they found that stress was the sole factor for ruining everything.
How can you be stressed if you're a baboon? Just joking. There's a lot of baboons wandering around
they
there.
Just out there fight each other. They're pretty rude.
Well, they're pretty lovely in the Planet of the Apes movies. But anyway.
Baboons are.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're on the side of the good guys.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, there's some lovely baboons.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
I've never heard of lovely baboon before. When you see them acting with each other, you just go, wow, they're like dogs that bite each other all the time.
So I have a real love for cholesterol because the liver makes most of it. With dietary changes where they try to lower cholesterol, it's never what they think it is. So there was a study, and it was someone like Sigrid Thornton or someone here in Australia. We used to have this show on Channel 9, and basically they tried to prove
all the rivers run.
Yeah, that's there. And I think it was her. And what they tried to do, it was a show called Good Health or something, which wasn't. It was really a big pharma advertisement. But basically what they tried to do was prove that eggs caused cholesterol. So they kept increasing the number of eggs that someone ate, and they got up to 20 eggs per day. Cholesterol went through the floor.
Oh, it went down.
Yeah, it went down. Absolutely. Because fat does not cause high cholesterol. That is such a lie. It's nothing to do with fats. In fact, you know what the major food that increases cholesterol is? Sugar. Sugar and alcohol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sugar and alcohol will increase cholesterol, and that's because the sugar and the alcohol damage the capillary walls. They damage the gut lining. Right. So therefore, again, the liver goes, holy crap, we've got to heal them. So the liver releases all this cholesterol to go heal the capillaries,
and of course,
to go heal the gut lining.
And of course, you have the sugar and the alcohol to
when
relieve the stress.
Look, I love nothing more than a glass of red wine. If I am stressed, or 10, no, only joking. But if I'm stressed from that, and I know it's psychological, it must be psychological, but from that first sip of the wine, my brain starts to relax. And it's really interesting. And the other thing that happens, which hasn't happened so much lately, so I wonder whether something's improving in my body. Maybe with the matured hops. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But, you know, something that's happened to me for 30 years, because it's been my ongoing joke. I'll get half a glass, I'll get into half a glass of wine, and then I will feel a part of my body just relax. So it's almost like I feel the alcohol going to my upper back and just go, or I'll feel it in my legs, or I'll feel it in my feet, and it's really interesting because I go, oh, that's the area that was most stressed. So it's been something that's been happening for a long time, and I've always quite enjoyed the sensation once I go, oh, okay.
But if you only have a little bit, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Resveratrol and
Because reducing the stress is good, even if it's from a glass of wine.
I agree. I agree.
Because if the stress keeps going, you won't sleep that night.
And again, I sort of wonder, anyway, because,
Anyway, the health nurse told me that 4 alcoholic drinks a day is okay.
Yep.
Which I was surprised at.
Yeah.
Because I don't drink at all. So.
Well,
and she
it's sort
said
of
a
interesting,
maximum
isn't
of
it?
20 a week. It was a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
That the heart nurse said was okay, and I'm like, well, I won't be doing that anyway, but just in case I can have a few beers.
So then we were also chatting yesterday about the hormone levels that positively affect the heart. So, the happy hormones are things like dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin. So again, you mentioned right at the start, it's the positive social aspects of the life that help to.
Well, not only that, but that's the ongoing general. By having really nice level of hormones, you're going to have a strong heart that's less vulnerable.
Yes.
But people with heart problems, if they can't get these things right, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Like just say, imagine if someone like some clients I see, they'll be through some cardiac trouble, but they're in a relationship that's toxic.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard to get the healing right.
Yeah.
And it makes them vulnerable for another heart attack because these things are protective factors.
Yes. Your dopamine, your endorphin, your oxytocin,
and they're
your serotonin.
all protective factors. And when you look up individual studies, which are really easily available, they're extremely protective factors.
Right.
And they're trying, because in counselling, they're almost used as interventions. And you can get little cards online that say, like dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin. They'll have little things, all the counsellors use them now, and they show different activities to increase those levels. Yeah. And they're nearly all social things.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you've got a negative social situation happening, they're going to plummet. And then if you've got a heart problem, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if the stress is causing cortisol as well, it's like the
double whammy.
Difficult conditions for recovery.
Yeah. So I thought I'd mention, one of the things that you can get tested if your doctor's up for it is a D-dimer test. So a D-dimer test is something that shows micro blood clotting. So tiny little itsy-bitsy blood clotting at the capillary beds. And we've got so many people having heart issues at the moment on the planet.
Well,
so it's something to get our...
It's increased on the planet. And
sevenfold.
Studies are all showing
that. Absolutely.
It's
not good. So anyway, so a D-dimer is something, it's shocking, it's very sad. So D-dimer, it's a test. Another one you can get your doctor to check you for is homocysteine. So
and will they do these tests and are they expensive?
D-dimer is a cheap old-fashioned blood test.
Oh, but will they do it?
Don't know.
Okay.
So I've managed to get some of my clients to do at some stage during the last, 4 years. Some doctors absolutely refused to do it, but I did a year ago was the last time I actually requested one, and she did it, and she didn't know how to read it, and she said it was fine, and then when I got a copy of it, it was absolutely not fine. It was so far out of range for my client. I was so angry that it took so long to get a copy of it. Doctors sometimes don't know how to read blood work.
Well, they average between 4 and 6 minutes a session.
Yeah.
And
so it's not a lot of fun.
And then you've got to do the follow-up work after it. So it's pretty...
So homocystine's another one. Now, here in Australia, there was our AMA TGA, the medical associations, about 10 years ago, they did a study. They said homocysteine is absolutely not linked to being a precursor of strokes and heart attacks. Unless someone has had a stroke or a heart attack, at which point we pay attention to it for the potential for further strokes and heart attacks. But the funny thing is, from a natural therapy perspective, is that homocysteine, it's an inflammatory marker in your blood, but it's a deficiency. It's a deficiency of activated B6, B9, B12.
Oh, really?
And of course, when we've had lots of anesthetics, that can chew up our B vitamins. If we've got an MTHFR gene that's active, that can chew up our B vitamins. If we've got lots of stress, that can chew up our B vitamins. If we've got high levels of cortisol, we're not sleeping properly, we have to run on adrenaline. This is the whole thing about sleep. So when we're not sleeping well and you're not getting a good night's sleep, you wake up and you've still got to get through your day. So what does your body do to give you energy? Yeah, cortisol, adrenaline, sugar, coffee, these sort of things. So we all of a sudden have to self-medicate with whatever we have to do. And sometimes that self-medicate is just running on adrenaline, to get through the day. And we go for the cream butter morning tea or we go for the, because we know that we get a quick burst of sugar after a Mars bar or, Kit Kat or something. So it's, so we self-medicate, but it's sort of interesting, isn't it? But B's, activated methylated B vitamins, really important for energy. Supports so many enzyme pathways in the body, so many benefits with each of our B vitamins in turn. They all do lots of good stuff. Here in Australia, one of my favorite ones is the Orthoplex White Bioenhanced Methyl B. We go through a bit of that, don't we?
Yeah.
So what else have I got? Oh, some herbs for the heart. Hawthorn, lemon balm, motherwort, danshan. So there's they're probably my favorite heart herbs.
What about things like the hormones, like we know that like serotonin, for example, like we did that yesterday.
Yes.
Because you've got a dietary thing, because you need to get the hormones right, you need the base dietary ingredients.
Yes, you need the ingredients, absolutely.
And so you can look up in the foods, and you can look it up online pretty easily if you look up dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin.
Yeah.
You'll see what foods have what foods promote their.
Yes.
And so it's like, for example, that we know that, like, we went through serotonin yesterday.
Yes. So the sort of foods that increase serotonin by eating tryptophan-containing foods such as salmon, eggs, cheese, turkey, tofu, pineapples, nuts, oats, and seeds. Things that increase dopamine naturally.
So tryptophan is one of the ingredients to make serotonin. Also HTP5.
5-HTP,
5-HTP.
Yep. So things that increase dopamine are things like nuts and seeds, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and flax seeds.
Nuts and seeds,
as well as protein-rich things like eggs, chicken, and fish, salmon, mackerel. So yeah, it's easy to find these things.
Yeah, there'll be vegetarian options too.
Well, there are almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, lots of it. Yeah. So it is easy to find that. Absolutely, David. Good tip.
Yeah. So we can just for our diet, and then if we can't get enough, because you need the raw ingredients to make in your body to make these things.
Yes.
And working that out, if you're feeling flat, there might be something that you can't make. Because if you don't have a social problem, it's probably internal. Yeah.
And just every time we are tempted to go for the quick fix of sugar, just be aware that as soon as you have something filled with sugar, about 40 minutes later, you have high insulin. You have a really thin window. Yep, you have a thin window of feeling energized. About an hour later, you get an insulin dump. So you've got low blood sugar.
And so some of the doctors online talk about eating fiber first.
And eating fat with everything.
So
my thing is.
So they say, like, because there's some cardiologists online that really put this in an interesting way. They go, because you don't want to not have your coffee.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to not have your ice cream.
Yeah.
So they say if you eat fibrous foods first, like if you eat a salad first.
Yeah.
And something with more fiber in, like berries, or it's like get the fiber in, and that makes the sugar spike. Instead of like this, it'll make it absorb slower. So how would that be a benefit by reducing the spike?
Because then you're not damaging the capillaries.
Oh, okay. Oh, the sugar damages.
Oh, the insulin does, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you also think about anything that slows down liver function, because the liver makes your cholesterol. Once again, cholesterol's good. So basically, if you have, I've been telling my clients for 30 years, where's your fat with that? So if you have fat, whether or not it's in the form of nuts or seeds or cheese or eggs or meat for the metasauruses, by having fat with anything, it's going to slow down the metabolism. It's going to blunt the insulin.
Okay. And same with protein.
So protein, not so much. Fat, much more so. The order we absorb things in the body and the order at which we get an insulin spike, alcohol, sugar, bad carbohydrates, good carbohydrates, protein, and fat.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that's why a true ketogenic diet is about 70 to 90% fat.
Right. So they were saying how you do this, you get your high fiber foods, which will be, what are those types of broccoli? What are they called? Couldn't
Sulforaphane.
Self-purifying
Sulforaphane.
veggies
Yep.
or all the berries. Do
Yep.
you know what I mean? So you eat them first, and then if you eat the sugar after it, it just slows it all down.
Slows the absorption.
Yeah.
Yeah. So high fiber foods are things like avocados, lentils, oats, broccoli, bananas, apples, raspberries, split peas, vegetables, carrots, beans, artichoke, chia seeds. So there's lots of things. So again, if you're working with a functional medicine doctor or naturopath and you find you've got plant toxins, you choose the ones that are low in those plant toxins.
Mm. And the high fiber, what else does it do? It helps get your bowels moving properly.
Yeah. Really bad for people with diverticulitis. There's always exceptions to every
Except for diverticulitis.
Yeah. So
whatever that is.
Anyway, okay. So that's okay. I think we've chatted about lots of stuff there, David.
Awesome. Well, that should be helpful.
Yeah. So we've gone everywhere, haven't we?
Yeah, and dealing with these things, you can deal them naturopathically.
Yes.
Or you can deal, and because stress is such an important factor,
absolutely.
deal with it in counselling and get some support, and we can work out how to tune your lifestyle to actually get these things working. Because if we don't do the social things right, we can't. So you're doing the social things right, like for example, serotonin. If you're in a social group and you can be the champion for that day, and they're like, "Yeah, good on you." That's a big burst of serotonin.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but if if someone puts you down, that'll be a collapse in serotonin, a collapse in dopamine, and a collapse in all. And so it's like we need to do social things. Like for example, yoga will help produce dopamine.
Yeah.
And that's the baseline, not the I take a drug and get a lot of it at
that's
once.
Right.
But because they all have a baseline where we want to bring them up, and then they spike for different things. But we want to get the baseline for all of them up by activities. You can look up online what activities you do to produce these hormones.
But you'll know because it's the stuff that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So I like, not that I've done it for 5 years, but I've always loved being on stage. Right. You can imagine that, can't you? Love an audience. So it's sort of interesting that that's just something that works for me. But it's like I actually hate yoga.
Yeah, a lot of people.
No, actually, that's a lie. I don't mind yoga. I hate Pilates.
Right.
But I always said I'd do yoga. By the time I was 50, I still have it.
Yeah, but yoga's a whole bunch. Yoga's not just doing the exercise, right? Yoga's very similar to what we do in counselling, making the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
We're making the semi-regulated parts of ourselves more regulated.
Yeah.
And
anyway, I think we've chatted enough there, David. Good stuff. Woo! Thanks, everyone. See you again.
See you soon.